will call to order this Bristol, Tennessee City Council meeting of November 5th, 2019. Tara, would you please call the roll?
Powers.
Here.
Luttrell.
Here.
Turner.
Here.
Fire-Robin.
Here.
Key.
Here.
So I want to welcome everybody who's here, and tonight we have quite a few people here, so we welcome you all. Your interest in city government is greatly appreciated. There are a number of opportunities to speak on matters of city business this evening, and a sheet explaining those opportunities was made available when you entered the meeting room. As we go forward on tonight's agenda, I'll note each time that public comment is welcome. In addition, there was a sign-up sheet provided as you enter the council chambers for folks wishing to address City Council during the appearance of citizens on our agenda. So for our invocation and pledge, I ask Vice Mayor Malin Luttrell to introduce our person to lead our invocation, and then for him to go ahead and lead us in our pledge. Vice Mayor Luttrell.
Thank you, Mayor. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Pastor Matt Cross tonight. I've known Matt for around 20 years. You know, Matt is a pastor of Surf Church and also serves as the team chaplain for the Bristol Pirates as well as he did for the Bristol White Sox. To me, it's just remarkable knowing Matt and how he is able to reach out to so many different age groups. In this day and time, you know, that can be pretty tough. So with that now, Matt, I'll ask you to come up and lead us in invocation.
Please stand.
Thank you. Let's pray. Father, we just want to come to you now as we begin entering into a season of gratitude, to give our gratitude for some of your creation of joy. God, may this city and this council never forget the joy of serving, the ability to serve, that it's not an inconvenience, it's a joy, and you created that joy through your example. God, your greatest purpose and your greatest creation, let us give gratitude for relationships, even when we agree and disagree on councils and in city meetings. God, may we have a common goal of the relationships that you created for the good of man and the good of men and women of this city. God, may you bless and prosper this city because of those who live in it and those who guide it with their wisdom. God, may you always be at the forefront of our gratitude for the relationships that you've created through this room and that ripple throughout this entire city. May Bristol always be something shining bright on the top of a hill because of relationships that you have formed. That go beyond what anybody can break apart. And God, we give you this gratitude in this season. In Jesus' name, amen.
Everyone face the flag, please. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Soar, do you have any items to be added to the agenda this
No,
evening?
Mayor, the agenda is complete.
Thank you very much. We have one proclamation and one recognition on tonight's agenda. Our proclamation is designating November 30th as Small Business Saturday, and Councilwoman Lee Powers is going to read that, and Mr. Ken Moniak, Chairman of the Board of Directors of Believe in Bristol, and Maggie Elliott are here to receive it. We welcome y'all. And
Thank you, Mayor. I have the pleasure of serving on the Believe in Bristol board, and it truly is a pleasure. And so, whereas the cities of Bristol, Tennessee and Bristol, Virginia celebrate our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently more than 30 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.7% of all businesses with employees in the United States. They are responsible for 64% of the net new jobs created over the past 20 years. And whereas small businesses employ over 49.2% of all businesses in the private sector in the United States, on average 33% of consumers' holiday shopping will be done at small, independently owned retailers and restaurants. 70% of adult U.S. consumers are aware of Small Business Saturday, and 42% of consumers who reportedly shopped at small, independently owned businesses on Small Business Saturday did so with friends or family. And 83% reported encouraging others to shop or dine small. And whereas among consumers who said they participated on the day, 41% of those people participating reported that they shopped small online on Small Business Saturday as well. Whereas among companies that were planning promotions on Small Business Saturday, 92% said the day helps their business stand out during the busy holiday shopping season. And the cities of Bristol, Tennessee and Bristol, Virginia support our local businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our neighborhoods. And whereas advocacy groups as well as public and private organizations across the country have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday, we do as well. Now therefore, we, Margaret Fire-Robin, Mayor of Bristol, Tennessee, and Neil Osborne, Mayor of Bristol, Virginia, they do hereby proclaim November 30th of 2019 as Small Business Saturday and encourage the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Friday and throughout the year. Congratulations to Believe in Bristol for putting this together.
A proper thank you. On behalf of the Believe in Bristol Board of Directors, I would like to thank both cities of Bristol for your recognition of this important holiday for our local economy. As Councilwoman Powers noted, there are several great reasons to support Small Business Saturday, and here are a couple more reasons, and here's what happens when you shop local. More of your money will be kept in your local economy. For every $100 you spend at locally owned businesses, $68 will stay in the community. What happens when you spend the same $100 at a national chain? Only $43 stays in your economy. And I don't have to tell you what stays in our economy when we add things to our Amazon cart. Zero. You embrace what makes your community unique. You wouldn't want your house to look like everyone else's in the U.S., so why would you want your community to look that way? You create local jobs. Local businesses are better at creating higher paying jobs for your neighbors. When you shop locally, you help create jobs for teachers, firemen, police officers, and many other essential professions. You help the environment. Buying from a locally owned business conserves energy and resources in the form of less fuel for transportation and less packaging. You nurture community. Local business owners know you and you know them. Studies have shown that local businesses donate to community causes at more than twice the rate of chains.
Furthermore, you conserve tax dollars. Shopping in a local business district means less infrastructure, less maintenance, and more money available to beautify your community. Also, spending locally instead of online ensures that your sales taxes are reinvested where they belong, in your community. You create more choice. Locally owned businesses pick items and products they sell based on what they know you like and want. Local businesses carry a wider array of unique products because they buy for their own individual markets. You took advantage of their expertise. You are their friends and neighbors, and locally owned businesses have a vested interest in knowing how to serve you. They're passionate about what they do. Why not take advantage of it? You invested in entrepreneurship. Creativity and entrepreneurship are what the American economy is founded upon. Nurturing local businesses ensures a strong community. You made your community a destination. The more interesting and unique your community, the more we will attract new neighbors, visitors, and guests. This benefits everybody. We encourage you to join us downtown this entire holiday season. Historic downtown Bristol offers more than 30 locally owned boutiques and retails with specialties including toys, games, vintage finds, and antiques, collectibles, fashions, handmade items, home decor, art, jewelry, books, and more. Round out your day with coffee, tea, dessert, or full-service dining at one of our amazing 27 eateries or great breweries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for everything that Believe in Bristol does to enhance and help our downtown to be the vibrant downtown that it is. So next, John Luttrell, Director of Community Relations, is going to recognize the latest graduates of the city's Communiversity program.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, Mr. Sora. Now in its 9th iteration, the Bristol, Tennessee Communiversity began in 2009 as the Citizens Municipal Academy. Over the course of several weeks, students in this program learn in great detail about the roles and functions of nearly every city department. Topics covered include our city's governance structure, finance operations, planning, codes, public services, police, fire, economic development, community relations, and parks and recreation. While some Communiversity sessions are conducted in a classroom format, others involve more hands-on field sessions, such as learning about the fire department from Chief Carrier and his crew at Fire Station Number 5 over a classic fire hall spaghetti dinner. Beyond their core curriculum, participants are also invited to attend other events coinciding with the Communiversity dates, such as our annual Boards and Commissions reception and our Historic Preservation Awards. The desired outcomes of this experience are to build positive relationships and increase communication between government officials and our citizens, as well as to inspire participants to engage in future opportunities for leadership. Several past participants have gone on to serve on our city's many boards and commissions, on which some of this year's participants already serve, and have even held seats on city council. Without further ado, I present to you our Communiversity participants meeting the requirements for graduation this year. So if you all please come forward to receive your certificate as I call your name and have your photo taken with Mayor Fire Robin. And if you will remain near the front, we'll take a group photo of this year's entire graduating class. First, we have Clyde Downs. Aaron Downs. John Harden. Christy Hensley. John Link. Melissa Mullins. Melissa Roberts. and Takai Shu. With you. Yeah. Now, if you all will stay here just one moment, I do have one additional presentation regarding this year's Communiversity. So participants are asked to evaluate each session, and at the conclusion of the course, one department is honored as being the highest rated by the class by receiving the Big Cheese Award. It is a hard-won badge of honor to be displayed prominently, accompanied by some pretty serious bragging rights. This year's Big Cheese Award goes to the Bristol, Tennessee Fire Department. So, Chief Carrier. The spaghetti dinner may or may not have influenced the vote. But yeah, if you'll have your photo taken with our participants. We'll have it freshly engraved with the fire department for this year. And we do have a small token of a little memento of your experience for each of our participants here on the stage in those bags. They should be in alphabetical order. While we're giving those out, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the work of the community relations staff, specifically Ann Dunham and Jama Helbert, for all the hard work they put in to coordinate these sessions. They've truly made Communiversity the best experience that it could possibly be.
And I think Butch Downs was the only one to get any response from the audience, so he wins the award for that. And congratulations, and we encourage everybody, we'll be announcing when we offer another class, which usually is one time a year. We'll see when the next one will be, but I think it is a great opportunity to meet all our staff, learn what the city departments do, and be able to appreciate where we are as a community. We have no presentations tonight, but we do have two public hearings on the agenda. And the first one is ordinance to amend section 213, off-street parking of the zoning ordinance. And Mr. Soar, if you want to.
Yes, Mayor, be glad to. Ordinance 1910 is a zoning text amendment, and it relates to parking regulations for education facilities. This came out of a staff review of the plans for the new middle school. And it was noted by staff that there was no distinguishment between the requirements for a high school or higher education facility versus an elementary school or middle school, which obviously did not have the same student parking demand. So staff researched parking requirements for education facilities in other communities and have proposed new standards to the Planning Commission, and of course this body approved the recommendation on first reading last month. So with that, I'm going to ask Ms. Sherith Young, our Planning Services Manager, to approach the podium and detail the amended regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Sora. Good evening, everyone. Mr. Sora did an excellent job in providing that introduction. We did take a look at our parking regulations in response to the middle school's submittal of a new site plan and realized, as Mr. Sora stated, that there was some issue in that all schools were treated the same and all schools don't have the same amount of drivers. So what we did was we looked at surrounding communities and saw what regulations were in place there, and came up with the solution that's before you tonight, which breaks the school classification into elementary and middle school, high school, and then other schools such as colleges, universities, trade schools, training schools that would serve predominantly people that would be driving to the school, and tried to come up with a more balanced parking regulation to serve all of those educational uses. So the Planning Commission did look at this in September and voted 9-0 to send a favorable recommendation to City Council. So the changes that would go into effect if approved tonight are before you on the screen in red. And I'd be happy to answer any questions if you all have any questions about this proposal.
Does council have any questions at this time? If not, I'll open the public hearing. And is anyone here tonight liking to address City Council on this matter and provide input? Seeing none, I'll say that the hearing is closed. Next, we have Ordinance 1911 to amend the zoning map of Bristol, Tennessee by designating certain property as B1A, limited business institutional at 841, 843 Hill Street. Mr. Sora, do you want to summarize that for us?
I'll do that very briefly, and then I'll invite Ms. Young back to the podium. As you indicated, this is a zoning map amendment. It is related to 841 and 843 Hill Street. These two properties are currently zoned RE, established residential. The property owners, Wallace Properties Management Group, LLC, has requested a rezoning of the properties to B1A, which is limited business and institutional. The owner intends to remove the existing buildings for the purpose of expanding the inventory parking lot for the dealership. Shirley.
Thank you. Again, I'll walk through just a couple of maps and photos here. We did look at these in October, but here's a location map of the rezoning subject parcels. They're outlined in red and at the corner of 9th and Hill Street. Volunteer Parkway is on the right side of your screen. This is an excerpt of our zoning map. So the parcels, again outlined in red, are shown in a yellow color, which indicates the RE or residential, established residential district. The pink color is the B3, which is the general business district, and then there's some red zoning that is B1A, which is our neighborhood business district. This is a bit of a step back, so a little bigger view of the map area. You can see that there is quite a bit of RE zone that surrounds the parcel, but you can see the proximity of the B1A and B3 zones here as well. Just a quick recap of what uses are allowed in each zone. The RE district is going to allow your single family and duplex residences. There are some uses that are outside of the residential classification that are allowed by special use permit. Those are things like churches, daycare centers, philanthropic institutions and clubs, and sports clubs like golf, swimming, tennis, and similar sports clubs. The B1A allowed uses, they expand a little bit, so you have the single family and duplex residential uses allowed, but you also have some business uses that would be in proximity to a neighborhood or used by neighborhood, provide services for neighborhoods. Here are a couple photos. This is the subject property at 841 and 843 Hill Street. This is standing down closer to the parkway, looking up Hill Street from the chiropractor's office parking lot. This is standing right in front of the property and looking west along Hill Street. And then this is at that same intersection, turned around looking back towards Volunteer Parkway with the rezoning parcels on your left. And these are just a couple views. This is kind of adjacent across 9th Street. So this is the house at the top left corner is zone B1A, if you remember the red rezoning parcels on your on the zoning map we looked at. And then the bottom right-hand corner is the alley that separates Wallace's dealership now from the subject parcels that are that have applied for the rezoning. So just a couple quick points on what went into our site analysis. These buildings have been used residentially as part of the RE neighborhood for some years. The B1A, that red zone, is within proximity and is an adjacent zone to these parcels. The B3 district, which is that general business zone, is located right across the alley. And that's property that's also also owned by the applicant. So given the location of this property and the fact that there are those other business zonings in the area, staff felt that this was a suitable step-down type situation into the neighborhood, so it didn't rezone the parcels as B3, but that B1A neighborhood business zone. And this is an appropriate step-down zone from that residential area into the commercial zoned area. Any future development here will require a site plan approval and would have to follow all the standards that are in our zoning ordinance related to the B1A zone, if that's the rezoning decision tonight. Finally, just a quick excerpt from our future land use plan and policy. This map image at the bottom of the screen shows the future land use map. The pink color is the designation for a business commercial zone. The kind of yellow color is for low-density residential. So you can see in the red circle, which is what indicates the location of this rezoning parcel, that is indicated for commercial use in the future. And we do look at all the transitional areas and what makes sense here. And again, in the analysis, felt that B1A provided a transition zone into the neighborhood. Just a quick summary of public notice and public comment. This public hearing notification did run in the Bristol Herald Courier in October as required. If you recall, in October I stated that we had one call, just someone curious about the rezoning request. You did have one email that expressed objection. Since the October meeting, I received 3 calls, actually all 3 today, that did object to this rezoning. I did tell those folks that I would pass along their message, and that is the summary of everything that we've received to date today. So the Planning Commission looked at this and voted 7-2 to send a favorable recommendation to City Council for the rezoning from RE to B1A, Limited Business Institutional District.
Does council have any questions?
Did I understand you say you had 3 additional objections today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what were those objections?
All 3 said they objected. The one particular person that specified, kind of expanded on their objection, was related to concern about traffic and the additional traffic that a commercial use could bring to Hill Street.
And do we know, are those folks residents of that neighborhood?
Yes, ma'am. All 3 are on the 900 block. So that is the block going west away from the Parkway. And again, the addresses of the parcels in question are 841 and 843. So they would all 3 be located on that next block.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. So this is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone here tonight who wishes to address council on this matter, on this rezoning? Seeing none, we'll move on to appearance of citizens. And I think we have several folks. This section provides for an opportunity for the public to address City Council on any matter that is not on the printed agenda for a formal consideration. Comments are limited to matters of city business only, and a response is not likely to be made at this time in most cases because neither council nor the city manager are necessarily prepared to effectively respond to the concern. Frequently, the city manager looks into the matter, reports back to us, or as appropriate may have city staff meet with you in order to satisfy your concerns. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual and are not transferable to other individuals. Groups are encouraged to select a spokesperson to represent them, and I have a list of individuals who have signed up to speak this evening. So the first one is Christy, and pardon me if I don't say it right, Rabatoy. Is Christy here?
Speak on one of the formal
On the agenda. Okay, so we'll hear from you in just a little bit. David Shoemaker? And do you want to speak when it comes up on the agenda, or you want to speak at this point?
Now's good.
Usually we have it when it comes up on the agenda.
Didn't know it was on the agenda tonight, so.
Oh, it's not on the agenda, actually. It's not.
So,
Yeah, please, go ahead. Yes. It's been on our mind, agendas.
anyway, David Shoemaker, 1126 Columbia Road, Bristol, Tennessee. I also speak as someone who owns a building at the corner of 6th and Shelby Street downtown. And what I'd like to speak about in this oddly familiar place is the new ideas for downtown parking. I was kind of surprised when I saw it in the paper last week. I called Mayor Firerobin and spoke to her about it a little too passionately, I'm afraid, and had to apologize for that. And I found out that you're going to have an opportunity for citizens to address that in a couple meetings. Unfortunately, since I'm going to be out of town on the 14th, and I understand the council members maybe will be on the National League of Cities on the 19th. This is my only opportunity to talk to y'all. So I really would hope that I can help y'all avoid the kind of disaster y'all had on 6th Street. I don't think any of you necessarily think that went well, and I'm not being facetious here when I say I hope to help. You know, I've got a good bit of experience working on revitalization of downtown. In fact, with the exception of Mayor Firerobin, more experience than the other 4 council members put together. One of the things I've learned in the 15 years I was on the city council, every National League of Cities conference, every Tennessee Municipal League conference, I went to every workshop that had anything to do about downtown. That was kind of my thing. And some of the things I learned, of course, is, you know, you want people to buy and renovate downtown buildings. When I came on city council, half of Bristol was boarded up and the rest was on its way out. That was 21 years ago. You also want people to start businesses downtown. And finally, in order to have a really vibrant, exciting downtown, you want people to actually live and work downtown. I was surprised when I called Mayor Firerobin about this parking idea that y'all don't actually vote on that. Apparently it's presented in a work session and you nod or wink or something and it just goes forward. So I don't think that's the best way to do it, but that's up to y'all. I understand some months ago I spoke with City Manager Sora about some of the parking there around 6th Street. Some businesses, for instance, the Sprint building down there, people parked on the city streets instead of parking in their parking lot so that they could walk 100 feet instead of 200 feet to the door. And I understand that's a real problem in some places, or has been. But, you know, I learned as a school teacher many years ago that you don't punish the whole class because a couple kids are acting up. That's just not the best way to do it.
Your 3 minutes are ending, so I apologize.
I can stop, or I can give you about another minute.
If you have another minute, then everybody else here is going to have another minute. So
$360 for a parking sticker is most of what my kids on my building pay for a month's rent. That's just wrong, people. You know, y'all go home and park in your driveway or garage, but those people downtown, they don't have a whole lot of places to park. And some of us have done all we can to provide parking for those folks. That's just a bad idea. I have promoted for years the idea of a sticker for downtown folks, maybe one color for residents, one color for businesses, and a nominal fee of $50 or $75 seems appropriate, not the cost of a parking lot when, in fact, you're only giving them a hunting permit for a parking spot. Thank you.
Thank you. And those comments will be shared also at the 2 meetings that we'll be sure to announce the dates later. So, Patrick Cole, Oh, and I should ask, be sure to give your name and address when you get started. Might not have said that. Hi.
Good evening, Mayor Robin and Vice Mayor Luttrell and councilmen and women. I'm Patrick Cole, and from 1079 Maupin Road, Truckee, Tennessee, a resident here of East Tennessee. And I come to you tonight in honor of your position and much respect for the work that you do in these positions, knowing that your work has been put in place by God, and that you have a big mantle to carry in leading, guiding, and directing, and maintaining the welfare of a city at any level, regardless of the size of that city. But some sad news is that some citizens here of the city, their welfare is not being maintained, and that is of the preborn of the Bristol Regional Women's Center, and that is their lives are being allowed to be taken by those who would want to have abortions at the center. And I'm not at all against women's health. I think just a women's health clinic that is exclusively for women's health is fine. I know there are unique, women have unique health things that they need to take care of, and there's no issue there. But when the primary or one of the biggest options there of care at this women's center is abortion, to me it is no longer care. It is no longer about maintaining the welfare of the health of these women. It is now about a gross and perverse choice.
So we ask that you talk about city business, so if you can get to the part of your talk that is
Sure.
about city business. Thank you.
Just a quick comment, how's it not pertaining, because it's in this,
For where,
my misunderstanding?
City business are things that we have purview over and regulate, so.
Okay, well, just to finish my comment then is that I would ask you, just of a citizen here of East Tennessee, that just as the invocation said, is that you would be a light on a hill before God, knowing that we are all accountable before God, and that you would abolish abortion now, immediately, in the city of Bristol. Thank you.
Great. Next person is John O'Rourke.
Honorable City Council members, I appreciate your willingness to hear from the public. My name is John O'Rourke. I live on 1305 Broad Streets here in East Tennessee. I am a local Christian missionary in the Tri-Cities area with Full Armor Ministries. I have lived in the Tri-Cities area for about 14 years. I'm proud to call it my home. But I come before you today, similarly, the last gentleman, to talk about the abortion issue here in the city. Specifically, I will be talking to you about your duties and requirements. As I mentioned before, the Bristol Regional Women's Center, located on 2901 West State Street in Bristol, is the only abortion clinic in our area. And in terms of what they describe what they do on their own website, is they do abortions for women via vacuum aspiration, which is...
Excuse me, can I ask you to talk to city business?
Yes, I am. I am speaking on city business. What I'm speaking on is the injustice that is going on within the city limits, and I am asking you to form a city ordinance by making Bristol, Tennessee a sanctuary city for the unborn, which would outlaw the murder of unborn children in our area by any means, which is something that has precedence in the United States already and has recently happened in the city of Wascom, Texas. So I'd like to, in the upcoming time, in the upcoming weeks, to speak with you all about the opportunity to make a city ordinance regarding making Bristol, Tennessee a sanctuary city for the unborn, to outlaw the murder of the unborn children in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Jonathan Lugo. Is that correct?
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Jonathan Lugo. I am 18 years old and have been a resident of the Tri-Cities for most of my life. I come here today out of great respect for your position as city councilmen and women, knowing, again, that you are appointed by God for the praise of those who do good and the punishment of those who do evil. but I also come to you today to bring your attention to one of the foremost issues of injustice in Bristol, Tennessee today. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., tiny, innocent, and defenseless preborn human beings will be murdered,
Again, I ask you to talk to city business, things that we have ability to address.
I'm here to ask you to end this murder that takes place here in Bristol, Tennessee, by making Bristol, Tennessee a sanctuary city for the unborn. It is your duty before God to stand up for those who are appointed to die and those who do not have a voice, to be a voice for the voiceless. I want to encourage you to see that abortion is not merely a partisan or political issue. Abortion is a moral issue of justice in Bristol, Tennessee, for preborn human beings who are worthy of the same respect and the same protection from Bristol City law as you or I. These are image bearers of God and deserve the same protection from our law. You do not have to allow the murder of babies in Bristol. In fact, it is your duty before God to stand up for these children and to defend their very lives. And just in closing, hear the word of God from Proverbs chapter 24, verse 11, where God says, "Rescue those who are being taken away to death. Hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter. And if you say, 'Behold, we did not know this,' does not he who keeps watch over your soul know it? And will he not repay man according to his work?" So I encourage you to take this to heart, think about the murder of children in our city, and act on behalf of these children.
Ryan Kaiser. Is there a Ryan Kaiser here? All right. And David Lugo.
Good evening, council members. My name is David, and I'm a resident of the Tri-Cities. I would first like to express...
We asked you to give your address for the record.
Yes, I'm from 1512 Old Boones Creek Road in Jonesboro.
Thank you.
I would first like to express my gratitude to you for this opportunity to speak. I would like to voice my respectful submission to your role as civil magistrates. I would like to draw your attention to the modern-day Holocaust that is occurring within our city limits.
Can you speak to city business, please?
Yes, ma'am. I'm respectfully calling upon you today, as God's ministers ordained to carry out his wrath on evildoers, to interpose yourselves between an unelected court and the children that are being murdered here in Bristol. I would just add that Roe v. Wade is not a law. You have no legal obligation to follow it. And what we're asking you to do by making this city ordinance is nothing new. This has been done before. Our American society, beginning, of course, with the Declaration of Independence, was established on the principle of the interposition of lesser magistrates, as James Madison spells out in Federalist 46. In the 1850s, at the issuance of the Fugitive Slave Act, Wisconsin refused to comply with the unjust law. Even today, many cities have declared themselves sanctuary cities for the Second Amendment, have banned the sale of vaping products, or have become sanctuary cities for the unborn. In the book of Exodus, when the midwives were commanded by Pharaoh to murder the Hebrews' infants, they interposed themselves and refused to comply. So I'm asking you now to stand in the gap and make Bristol a sanctuary city for unborn children. I would respectfully remind you that you have the obligation before God to seek justice for the fatherless and to defend the lives of the innocent. And I'd like to leave you with God's word to civil magistrates in 2 Chronicles 19. "Consider what you are doing, for you do not judge for man, but for Yahweh. Now then, let the fear of Yahweh be upon you, and be very careful what you do, for Yahweh our God will have no part in unrighteousness or partiality." So again, I ask you as our civil leaders to stand with courage and wield the sword of justice and righteousness by making Bristol a sanctuary city for the unborn. Thank you.
So we have one more speaker, but if we have gotten the message, so if there's a different, something different to offer, we welcome you. Otherwise, we would move forward on our agenda. So that's Alex Mauger. And if we've gotten the message, then I would encourage you to have us move on. Thank you very much. All right, so that's it for our list, and we always ask if there's anyone else here who didn't have the opportunities to sign up, who would like to speak to something that is not currently on the agenda. Yes, come forward and give your name and address.
Hi, Trevor Leonard, 32 6th Street. Thank you all for the opportunity to be heard. Three things real quick. First, parking downtown, as I've stated in the past, I feel that we have been trying to find a solution to a problem that doesn't exist. Daytime parking downtown is not difficult. Second, the article in the Bristol Herald-Courier about the parking passes last week mentioned that there was some discussion near the end of the meeting about dogs in the city limits being required to be spayed or neutered in the future. If you think I've been unreasonable about parking and sidewalks, come after my dog. He's kind of fond of his body parts. Third, and actually a problem that begs action by the City Council. Over the past couple of years, we've witnessed a disaster in progress, a disaster that has already impacted many in our community, and it has, if left alone, it will eventually impact every single person in our area. We were promised more services, more access, more transparency, and better value. So far, what we have seen is a reduction in services that are available, higher prices, predatory collection practices, and worsening conditions. As a result of their policies and practices, the care and health of our community has already suffered and will continue to get worse as they look for more ways to cut expenses. We need the ability to be at the table when it comes to decisions about our health care. I would like to request that the council pass a resolution to hold public hearings to explore the creation of a public hospital authority.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. Anyone else wish to address council at this time? If not, I think we're ready for appointments, and we have one appointment tonight for our tree board, and it's for a term ending June 30th, 2021. The candidate is Mindy Bechtold, and would anyone here like to speak on her behalf? And if folks will pass their ballot in, that would be great.
Okay, Keene votes for Ms. Bechtold. Luttrell votes for Ms. Bechtold. Feyerabend votes for Ms. Bechtold. Powers votes for Ms. Bechtold. And Turner votes for Ms. Bechtold.
Congratulations to Ms. Bechtold, and we appreciate folks who serve on our boards and commissions. So the next item is Ordinance 1913, amending Chapter 10 of the City Code of Ordinance as it applies to the tethering of animals. Mr. Soar, would you please summarize?
Yes, ma'am. This issue came forward out of, from the October 29th work session as City Council discussed potential amendments to Chapter 10 from our Code of Ordinances as it relates to the tethering of animals. Ordinance 1913 creates a new subsection in 1046 that prohibits the tethering of dogs between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. It also contains provisions for a permit to waive this condition in the event the owner has a work schedule that would conflict with this type of ban on tethering. It would still require that the dog be released from a tether for an 8-hour period to be established within that permit. In addition, the tethering prohibition will become effective July the 1st, 2020. If approved tonight, this will come back to City Council at your December 3rd meeting for consideration on second reading. Ms. Smith, as well as Chief Wade, are both here this evening to answer any questions regarding the drafting of the ordinance or its enforcement.
Right. Council, do you have any questions?
I would like to ask, I have received a phone call about the inclusion of professional sporting animals that are bred for the specific purpose of hunting and sporting. We have some sportsmen in our city limits that have dogs that are specifically bred for this purpose, and they requested that they be included as part of the special use permit, because part of their training for sporting as hunting dogs is that they are out on a tether through some night hours to develop their coat, and that they would provide the appropriate documentation to support their position of the sporting animal.
City Council can make any amendment to the ordinance as it sits now. Obviously, the way it's written at this point, there is no exception. But City Council can make the exception that you feel like is appropriate.
So, to Council, I will probably ask to make that amendment at the appropriate time. I just want to make everyone aware of that. It was a strong argument or position, not an argument, but a strong position that was made for sporting animals. This particular individual has raised sporting animals for over 30 years here in the city, and this would impact the development of that animal as a sporting animal. They're extremely well cared for. They're probably some of the most well cared for animals that I've ever known. So just wanted to put that out there as part of the discussion, and at the appropriate time, we'll ask for that amendment.
Should that be now?
Should I ask for that now or continue?
Once there's been a
discussion?
motion and a second, then you guys move into actual discussion of the ordinance.
Okay, so we're just discussing.
This is staff comment, question period.
Okay.
Yeah, and we sometimes determine what's the best order to take stuff in. Is there a motion to take action on the ordinance as it was presented?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance 19-3 as presented.
Okay, is there a second? And then you would amend it after that, I believe is how it goes, right? All right, I'll make a second. And
is this where I make my amendment, or do we vote? Okay. I would like to ask that we amend Ordinance 1913 to include defined sporting animals that are credentialed as such to be included, as in an effort to allow them time on the tether that's in opposition to as the ordinance actually reads.
Is there a second to that amendment?
Second.
All right. Okay, and before we vote, we usually ask for input from our folks who are here. Is there anyone here who would like to speak to this ordinance? And if you can give your name and address.
Christy Rabatoy, 116 Allison Timbers Road, Piney Flats, Tennessee. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Here for two reasons. I co-chaired the Johnson City, Washington County animal ordinance work that we just got through. We started actually in February of 2018. We looked at all of the animal ordinances across the state of Tennessee and also Asheville, North Carolina. What we tried to do, kind of align and see where Johnson City, Washington County could improve theirs in regards to registration, spay or neuter, and particularly to your ordinance is anti-tethering or anti-chaining of dogs. It passed on first read. Last week we had a public forum. There was no negative comments, strong support for pursuing this further. We will have a second reading this Thursday night. I just want to tell you that in Johnson City, and Mayor Brock is quite certain that this will pass. We're hopeful. As co-chair of the committee, I decided that this had to be eased in, and we could not start with an absolute no chaining of dogs because it would never win approval. So what we are starting with is allowing for trolleys for 12 hours unattended, and any dog over 6 months old. No dog under 6 months old can be put on a trolley or a chain. We are going to use the next year to educate the public. I also have an organization called Chain Free Dogs that I'll speak about in just a second. But our plan is to go out and educate the public, not in a punitive way, but in the way of helping the public understand the benefits of not having dogs chained 24/7. If it goes through in 2021, you will not be allowed to chain a dog unattended in Johnson City. We fully realize that people are gardening or mowing their lawn and they might have their dog out on a tether for a while, and we don't have any objection to that. But unattended chaining of dogs will not be permitted. Secondarily, I have an organization called Chain Free Dogs, started 5 years ago. It is modeled after your own Chain Free Bristol. Be aware that Chain Free Bristol, Chain Free Dogs, and a year ago, Chain Free Greenville started. And with our 3 organizations using a regional approach, we have taken nearly 400 dogs off of 24/7 chaining. We build fences, chain link, 100 feet, 4 feet high with a gate. And as we work with these people, we also, one of the requirements is that you spay or neuter your dog, and you must have your vaccines up to date. So we have improved the life of these 400 dogs who are now either spay or neutered and have their rabies vaccine, and many of them also their distemper, parvo, and kennel cough. So I would ask Bristol to think regionally, as we all are trying to do right now in the Tri-Cities area, and seriously consider eventually moving your ordinance to no unattended chaining. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about what we did in Johnson City.
Thank you very much. All right, is there anyone else who would like to address council on this ordinance? All right. Seeing none, is there any further discussion on this ordinance? We're going to vote on the amendment first.
So you're discussing the amendment to the ordinance.
We're discussing the amendment to the ordinance. Okay, we're discussing the amendment. We'll vote on the amendment, and then we vote on the ordinance either as amended or not amended, depending on whether the amendment passes. Got that? Okay, so we're talking about the amendment first.
Okay, so we're discussing the amendment right now?
Yeah, I think we can suspend the rules and talk about all of it. Is that okay, attorneys?
Well, let's just talk about the
I make a motion that we suspend the rules to discuss the adoption of an ordinance 1913. You need a second. Somebody second.
I think we're okay.
Second.
Okay. All right. We're suspending the rules to have discussion. If we can vote on that, Tara.
Okay. Powers?
Yes.
Luttrell?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Fire-Robin?
Yes.
King?
Abstain.
For
The vote on the amendment.
No, we're not voting
To
on
discuss
it.
To discuss the amendment?
Yeah, now we're
Okay,
discussing
fine,
all
yes,
of
what,
it
yes,
together,
that's fine,
all of
fine,
it
yes,
together.
okay, yes.
Yeah, okay. So, we're
So,
discussing the whole
so we just
ordinance
came
and
up with
amendment.
a reason that nighttime tethering, or the banning of nighttime tethering is not good for a certain subsection of dogs. I can think of another reason that maybe dogs need to be outside at night because it's hot during the summertime. They don't get to go outside during the summertime. It's hot at night. Hot during the daytime. It's cooler at night. There's probably multiple other reasons. And in talking with multiple veterinarians about the subject, I've come to the conclusion that nighttime, that taking this ordinance is not good and does not, in my opinion, is not a good ordinance for us to take, to vote on. So I'll be voting no to the ordinance in general. As far as the amendment comes, I'm going to abstain to that amendment just because I know I'm going to vote no to this. Now, are there other ways that this can be done? I'd like to see that because I have talked about how difficult our current ordinance is to be enforced. So, you know, we say that we must have adequate water. We don't say how much water, but we say adequate water, adequate food. How much food is adequate? We rely on neighbors and friends to look at animals if they're malnourished or something of that sort. If a dog is not under cover, not in good shelter, we rely on neighbors. We can do the same thing with an ordinance, in my opinion, that reduces the tethering. Or let me say this, it bans tethering, but it doesn't tell the dog owner when they need to take the dog off the tether. I mean, in my opinion, there's too many different variables for that to happen. So that's the reason that I will be voting no to this. I mean, we've kind of been here 2 or 3 times in the past. I'm just going to stay with that and love to hear what everybody else says about it.
Okay. Others?
Yeah, your comment about we've been there in the past, and that's the problem. You know, we've got to move this forward for the right reasons. You know, we all can, you know, listen to what someone may come up and say, you know, later and then try to, you know, take that into consideration. But, you know, it's been talked about for how long now? 3 years, 4 years? It's been going on. We've got other cities around us that's, you know, making great progress in this. And I think, you know, this, what we were talking about doing, and we sound like we all had somewhat of agreement on it before, is that it's just a right step of going in the right direction. So hopefully, you know, we can get past this and do what's right.
Anyone else?
I've got something that I prepared. I guess I can do it now, or we can do it if we're just, this is on the whole tethering issue, so.
The discussion is.
I can do it. First, let me say that as owner of a dog that is considered a member of our family, I do not condone or support cruelty, abuse, or neglect of any animal. Tennessee State Code 39-14202 makes the intentional or known torture, maiming, grossly overworking, failure to provide the necessary food, water, care, or shelter, abandonment or cruel transport or confinement of an animal a Class A misdemeanor, the highest level, punishable up to a year in jail and a $2,500 fine. In addition, in 2016, Tennessee became the first state to create an animal abuse registry that identifies anyone convicted of felony convictions involving animals. It is my personal opinion that anyone who owns an animal that is confined or chained 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, should be ashamed of themselves and their behavior. They shouldn't own any animal. With that being said, I do not think it is the role of government to enact laws strictly based upon the personal opinion regarding others' behavior. Government should not pass any law or ordinance that is nearly impossible to enforce or unreasonably denies individual freedoms or liberties. Driving by and seeing a residence and observing a dog on a tether is not an indication of abuse or neglect. In fact, I've recently learned that individuals advocating for a 100% ban on tethering animals believe that the proposed ordinance will not decrease the use of tethering, but will actually increase it. Time will tell. I've had many more questions than answers regarding this resolution. For example, is it an ordinance that can actually be enforced and will impede the ability of our police department to enforce other ordinances and laws that protect and serve the citizens of Bristol? Then to be told by advocates that this is in fact doing more harm than good and basically being ridiculed for considering this resolution. I guess as the saying goes, no good deed goes unpunished. After careful consideration of all the information that has been made available to myself, I am going to support the adoption of this ordinance. However, I want council to review this ordinance next July to determine if it has been effective. I want a report from our police department on the number of calls received, the number of citations, or other legal action being taken. I want to hear from our citizens if they have experienced any undue burden as a result. For those that support a 100% ban on tethering who claim that Vince Turner doesn't care for animals, shame on you. I have read the post on social media, shame on you. We need all our citizens to be truthful if we want Bristol to be a good place to live. We can agree to disagree, but should never tell mistruths or lies. I will encourage all citizens to report the criminal neglect or abuse of animals to our police department, and as a member of council, request that the enforcement of the existing ordinances and laws regarding the neglect or abuse of animals receive the attention required for enforcement.
Good job, Mr. Turner. I appreciate your comments, and I support your comments. This has been an issue that we've grappled with for over 4 years, 5 years. We almost had a solution then, but because there was an over-demand, we walked away from it. It's taken us 4 years to get back to this point. You know, the question has to be asked, who really cares about the animals? Is it a council that has tried for the past 4 years to come to a reasonable compromise that could satisfy the community at the same time? Or has it been those that have demanded an all or nothing position by council? It's been kind of hard to work through. And sometimes the greatest advocates of the unchaining of the animals have provided the greatest obstacle to get us where we'd like to go. I'll be supporting this ordinance tonight, along with the amendment, which I hope we can all agree upon, for sporting animals. To Councilman Keene, I understand your position too. And I think that it's admirable that we all feel free enough and respected enough to voice our opinions and for us to be able to do so agreeably. I appreciate the support of this ordinance by those who can. For those who can't, I appreciate your perspective.
Okay. And a couple of comments. So I believe it's been more like 8 years since we have been looking at this, and when we first had opportunity to think about it, this was pretty cutting edge in the state of Tennessee. Since that time, we've seen many communities in Tennessee and around our region and our country taken some steps forward on protecting our animals. Also, I'll say that this is a tool for the city, but it's a tool for neighbors, et cetera. And I'd say my personal experience has been to have times when all of the current opportunities are exhausted and there's still problems. So if there's opportunity to have more opportunity for animals to have a better life, I certainly support that. And for neighbors to be able to facilitate that to happen. I will remind that this is not saying people can't have their dogs outside, that there are opportunities for fencing, for kennels outside, et cetera. So it is not saying that people have to put their animals inside. It does mean that they would have to find alternative ways to keep the dogs outside. So,
but at
anyway.
present they don't. At present they can use the tether except from the hours from 10 to 6.
Right. So, all right. Any other comments?
My last comment will just be that I feel like that we can come up with a plan that actually addresses Malin's banning long-term tethering, and that a dog should not be on a chain or tether 24/7, 365 days a year. I just don't agree with the time limit that we have here from 10 to 6. I don't think we can tell pet owners what's best for their pets when, as we just gave 2 different instances. We now have a 3rd instance that we're actually covering in here, which is to address those folks that are working at night. So we have multiple instances here where 3 we've just now named that it's not good for the dogs to be, in other words, tethering at night might be better than tethering during the daytime. I do agree with the premise that we should not have 24/7, 365 days a year of tethering of our dogs. So I just feel like,
I mean, the reason that and I get everything that you said, I totally agree with. The problem is of getting them off of a tether, which I think, okay, I can agree with that, is our law enforcement, and I think of talking to them, this is the only way that they could enforce it. I mean, I would be fine with, okay, if you had an 8-hour period or you had a 5-hour period, 6-hour period, that they had to be off the tether, if there was a way that the chief could enforce that, and I think that the reason I'm going with this is when, at our work session, that was the one thing that they said they felt like that they could enforce.
Well, again, the whole ordinance is difficult to enforce. Adequate water, food, shelter, adequate shade.
Right.
Making sure the dog is protected when extreme weather comes, whether it be temperature-wise or, there are so many different things
Right. No,
that come up. So I'm just letting you know, that's the reason I disagree with this.
So, comment is that in our work session, we said that this ordinance would go into effect
July 1st.
July
2020.
1st. So, this is our first reading of this ordinance, and, it'll come back with, we'll have a second reading before it's actually put into play, and then we have until July 1st. So if at some time between now and July 1st, that solution presents itself, it could be revisited, but this is the first step to begin taking us in that direction. And so we still have some time. We should be open to conversations. We should be exploring if we feel like there's a better opportunity out there for us. But I just believe that at some point we have to take that first step. And if we're going to get the animals off of the chain 24/7, 365, and I see this is that first step.
So if we can move forward with voting on the amendment, if y'all are ready. So we first vote on.
This is just the amendment.
Just the amendment. So, and the amendment, do you want to restate the amendment?
The amendment would speak to the fact that a special use permit would be put into place for animals defined as sporting animals that are used for hunting or other specific elements of sporting to develop their code or whatever those circumstances may be, and it would have to be well defined, but a special use permit for sporting animals.
Yeah, I think probably the use of the word special use permit might be not, that means something different to.
Well, it does to planning, but a special use permit is for special use with any ordinance.
That it be added to the list of exceptions and processes to do it. Okay.
I think the city attorney can determine that.
Okay. I think we're.
I have one question regarding sporting animals. Are we talking about anyone that has say a beagle that wants to go rabbit hunting, or they
I
have
think
to
we're
be?
talking about those animals that have papers and have been designated as with the appropriate credentialing of a sporting animal. And that
It could
would
be a
have to
beagle, I would think. I mean, it could be a beagle, it could be a lab, it could be, I don't have.
Yeah, I'm just asking it,
Yeah.
because to me it kind of opens it up to anybody says their dog hunts. I mean,
Well, this one gentleman, he raises specific sporting animals, and he does it professionally. And
so is it a business or?
it is a business that he has.
Licensed
So
business?
does he breed them?
He does breed them.
Then he's already accepted.
I think that we need to have the term sporting animals included. We have a first and a second.
Okay.
So if we could vote on it.
Tara?
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Can
This is
make
the
a comment,
amendment.
can I?
No, not at this point.
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Fire Robin,
No?
King.
I'll abstain.
Okay. So the amendment passes. And then we consider the ordinance. And if we're done with discussion, hopefully, then we're ready to vote.
Okay. Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Fire Robin,
Yes.
King.
No.
All right, so we can have a little more discussion before we have a second reading on it, and next time we will have a public hearing as well, so.
No, Mayor, we don't have a.
Oh, we don't have
no,
a
it
pub-
wouldn't,
oh.
this doesn't fall under the category of items that we have a
Oh,
public hearing.
so this is it.
Zoning text
Okay,
amendments,
great.
those type of things do.
All right, so
But it-
it's approved.
Yeah,
And
well,
then
it will come back by,
We've got
we
to
will
vote
come
on
back
it
for
the second
second
time.
reading.
Okay, but not a public hearing, so
Yes.
people can speak to it, but not
Yes.
a public hearing. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and just a difference for, public hearings are required by law, public comment are not, so public hearing is you speak to the issue, public comments, we do timing on them, so that's the difference, I think, between the two different things. Traditionally, in our city, that's how we've defined it. Don't answer, Daniel. So, all right, so the next thing, next we have an ordinance to amend section 213, off-street parking of the zoning ordinance. I think we had our public hearing, so is there a motion to take action on this item?
Make a motion to approve.
All right, the motion to approve, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, Tara, would you please call the roll?
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Robin,
Yes.
Keen.
Yes.
All right, that passes. Okay, the next is an ordinance to amend the zoning map of Bristol, Tennessee by designating certain property as B1A, 841 and 843 Hill Street. And that was talked about earlier. Does anybody have any further questions? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve ordinance 1911 to amend the zoning map of Bristol, Tennessee by designating certain property as B1A.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and second. Discussion? I guess I do have some concerns about the neighborhood and that we have had some feedback from the neighborhood, so I'm really torn on this for how deep it goes into the neighborhood, also what it means probably for a future of the neighborhood. I also understand how neighborhood business and how transitioning could be okay. So I'm deciding how to vote right now. So anyway,
I'll make this
anybody
comment,
else?
is that I've known the Wallace family for many, many years, and I know that anything and everything that they try to do from a business perspective is quality in its nature, and I will be supporting this ordinance.
And I'll just remind, as trained by planning staff, et cetera, that when you change zones, you need to change it for the zone, not for the particular use. So
Right.
you need to be sure. So,
Right.
and I totally agree. Okay, anyone else? All right. Tara, when you're ready.
Powers,
Yes.
Luttrell,
Yes.
Turner,
Yes.
Robin,
No.
Keen.
Yes.
All right, that passes. All right, the next one is an ordinance, this is a first reading to amend Chapter 6 for alcoholic beverages to create a dual permit for on-premises and off-premises sales of beer. If you would summarize this for us, that'd be
Mayor,
great.
this is actually second reading
Second
this
reading.
evening. This is one of those items where
Oh.
we're not required by statute to have a public hearing, and that might be the confusion
No,
there.
it says first reading.
It's supposed to say
It
second
says
reading.
second reading.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a,
So-
Anyway.
mine says second reading.
Yeah, okay. So we're on our second reading of the permit for off-premises.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it-
I'm a
it
little
is second
rattled.
reading.
Okay.
All right, this issue was before you last month, and it's a request from Cascade Draft House to amend the city's beer ordinance for the sale of both on and off premises beer. This establishment currently has a permit for on-premises beer consumption only. The city's beer ordinance provides two types of permits, one for on-premises that's typically for restaurants, taverns, hotels, motels, and the like. And then off-premises permits are issued for the sale of beer to grocery stores, convenience stores, and similar type establishments. This Ordinance 1912 provides a definition for a dual permit that would allow craft beer retailers to possess a dual permit for both on-premises consumption as well as the sale of sealed containers such as cans and bottles or growlers for off-premises consumption. Ms. Smith drafted the amendment and certainly works with the beer board, as does Chief Wade. If you have any questions, they're both here this evening.
Right, does anyone have questions for staff on this second reading? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Motion to approve Ordinance 1912, amending the Chapter 6 of the Code of Ordinance, creating a dual permit for on-premises and off-premises sales of beer.
Okay, second.
Second.
All right, and discussion? So sometimes we have things that are closer to being housekeeping. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to address council on this matter? Seeing none, I think we're ready.
Powers?
Yes.
Luttrell?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Fire-Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
All right, we do not have any resolutions, so that brings us to our consent agenda. Mr. Sora, go for it.
Yes, Mayor, I'd be glad to. We have 4 sets of minutes for consideration this evening. One for the October 1st City Council meeting. We have a called City Council meeting on October the 3rd. We have minutes from an October 15th called joint City Council meeting with the City of Bristol, Virginia, and we have minutes from the October 29th, 2019 City Council work session. We also have Resolution 19103 authorizing the submittal of a grant application to the Tennessee Department of Transportation Traffic Safety or Traffic Signal Modernization Grant Program. Resolution 19104 authorizing entry into a professional services agreement for production of historic district design guidelines. Resolution 19105 authorizing the purchase of software support for GIS. Resolution 19106 awarding a bid for the demolition of 700 block of Shelby Street. Resolution 19107 awarding a bid for the purchase of replacement wireless remote control kit. Resolution 19108 awarding a bid for purchase of single axle dump trucks. Resolution 19109 authorizing the sale of surplus real property at 350 Henson Road. And Resolution 1910 authorizing the purchase of police wireless field reporting software support.
All right. Would any council member like to remove any item from the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Tara, would you call the roll?
Powers?
Yes.
Luttrell?
Yes.
Turner?
Yes.
Fire-Robin?
Yes.
King?
Yes.
All right. So now on our agenda, we are very pleased to welcome Dr. Tom Sisk and maybe Nelson Powell, chair of our school board, who will talk with us a minute and introduce our new director of schools. So we welcome you here tonight, both of you.
Madam Mayor and City Council members, City personnel, Nelson Powell, acting chairman of the Board of Education at your time. And one of our most important responsibilities as a school board is to seek and employ a school leader. And our Board of Education took this very seriously. And we asked our administrative staff and our principals what they would want in a leader. We developed the community surveys and sent those surveys out. We hired a search consultant. And one of the reasons we hired that search consultant was that we wanted to broaden our range of search. And also, using the private consultant allows that consultant to seek people who may not want to be identified at some other location, they don't want that location knowing that they're looking for another job. So that gives us more opportunities. Our search consultant looked at our community surveys, interviewed each board member, and received more than 20 inquiries. They screened that pool down to 7 candidates. Our process involved each Board of Education member doing a one-on-one interview with each of those candidates. And their plan was to get 2 or 3 of those candidates and bring them back for an interview. However, one of our candidates stood out extremely well. And each of our board members had this candidate as their #1 choice. So we didn't bring 2 or 3 back, we brought 1 back to have a community interview. And after that process, the Board of Education entered into a contract agreement with our current director. Some things about our director is that if you heard his interview, you know his passion and his energy. And there's no doubt that that passion leads in every direction in our school system, from pre-K reading to the arts and to post-secondary education. He's not a status quo person. He's a person that's going to lead us. If you're not moving forward, then you're going backward, is a common phrase that I think he may use, or he may not use it, but I've used it from spending time with him. He will move our school district forward and provide more career opportunities for our graduates than we've ever had before. Previously, probably most important, or more important, is he will involve our city and our community into making Bristol, Tennessee schools the very best in the state. We are pleased to have Dr. Tom Sisk as our Director of Schools. And now I'd like to introduce you to Tom Sisk, who can make a few comments.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Ladies and gentlemen of the City Council, thank you so much for having an opportunity to speak today. I am truly humbled to have this opportunity. Bristol is a good place to live. That's something that we're known for, but I'd like to think more like we're a great place to live, a great place to worship, a great place to raise a family. I would like to think that going forward, that Bristol, when people have a choice of where they choose to live, they choose Bristol. And we're going to work hard to develop the kind of partnerships that we need to have to be successful. During my last 8 years as superintendent in Limestone County, we went from a career technical center of 16 programs, 425 kids. I retired from the state of Alabama to come here and really begin my passion and work here. But I didn't do that before we built that to 26 programs and over 2,000 kids taking those programs. During my tenure as superintendent, we landed Asahi Kasai, an injection molding plant. We landed Remington Firearms from upstate New York. We landed Polaris. We build all-terrain vehicles. And most notably, we are building 2 automotive plants. Matter of fact, 8 miles from my house, and it is for sale if you want a vacation in North Alabama. But all kidding aside, 16,000 industrial jobs in the last 8 years. Every community every community, regardless of state, has incentive packages. We have interstates, we may have rivers, we have rail lines. I've gotten stopped behind them. But what separates a successful community and those that struggle to build and expand business opportunities is the workforce. The workforce is the new currency. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that we're here for all kids. When I came in, I told my staff, I'm going to look, I'm going to listen, and then I'm going to learn before I lead. And the reason we're going to do that is it's going to be a shared vision. Remember, a vision without a plan, though, is a hallucination. And we're not in that business. We are in the business of educating children. I was temporarily unemployed. I had retired one day, had one day off, and then started my new job here in Bristol, Tennessee last Friday. And so to tell you a little bit about passion, the one day I was off, I went to 5 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and went into 81 of our classrooms. Those 81 classrooms, I saw a lot of amazing things happening in Bristol, Tennessee. A lot of amazing things. But I think there are even greater opportunities for us as we go forward. So I'm working with staff members right now to develop plans that I will then bring forward to our Board of Education for consideration. Some of those plans will require partnerships with the city. I was speaking with the fire chief just before the meeting tonight, and I asked a relevant question. I said, how are we doing in staffing our fire departments? Because we built a public safety academy where we trained firefighters, we coordinated with emergency communications. By the way, that credential didn't even exist in the state of Alabama prior to us seeking it out and getting approval from the state board. We put in law enforcement. The city provided their instructor. We paid their part of their salary. So we did public-private partnerships. We did public and public partnerships with shared visions. And we were able to create a Firefighter One program that led to either volunteer service or directly into a paid department. I had the opportunity to talk to somebody that was on the water board, and I asked him, I said, how are we doing in staffing our water treatment plants? Because that's a trend that's having a problem to be filled in the country, in our state. And so, you know, I'm going to be looking for ways to solve problems. Will we have our hand out from time to time and say, yes, it will be, but it will be in friendship to shake. It'll be to roll up our sleeves and work side by side with you. If there's a need that we need to meet, I need to know what it is so that my staff and I have the time to work through a reasonable plan, and we will do what we need to do. I'll close with my tux talk. When you come to visit me in my office, and I have an open invitation to any member of the council to come, you'll see some of the things that I've been able to do. Now, understand there are 14,000 school systems in the United States. There are only 400 and something nationally certified superintendents, and I'm one of them, okay? So it's a pretty elite group. But that's because, as Mr. Powell said, passion is important. And I believe that if we build relationships, we get results. And when we put the right people in the room together, the sky's the limit. And so let me tell you what I told my staff. When people choose to come to Sullivan County to live, they're going to choose to be in Bristol because it's the best school system, not only in the county, not only in the state, but because we build a world-class reputation. So when the other school systems come to a meeting and they're dressed in a suit, we're going to wear tux. If they wear tux, we're going to have tails. If they have tails, we're going to have a hot top hat and a cane. If they wear the top hat and the cane, we're going to have gloves. And if they have all of those same things, well, by heavens, we're just going to smell prettier than them. That is the level of competition that I'm going to try to instill in our people. And the reason that there's always a sense of urgency is that in the next few months, 260, 270 of our finest young people are going to walk across the Stone Castle and graduate. And for them, I can't do much. But there's another class coming behind them, and yet another class behind them, and the class goes on. And the last thing I'll share with you, because the evening is late, understand my challenge. We have children, and I met, that I have to prepare for a workforce in the year 2040. That's kindergarten. So those children are going to enter the workforce, given the fact that they complete a full education and go to a college and complete 4 years of either trade or an institution of higher learning. They won't enter the workforce till 2040. And so it's important that we prepare them to be flexible and ready to do that. So I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and work with every member of this city council. I'm willing to work with any commissioner that will listen. I'm willing to work with any business partner that wants to sit down with us. I'm willing to help to co-construct a vision for Bristol. The night that the board had their lapse in judgment and hired me, I say that jokingly, I couldn't sleep. I was excited, invigorated. And my wife and I, we were staying at the Bristol, and so I couldn't sleep. Let's walk downtown. This, I think, was a Monday night, wasn't it, Mr. Powell? Remember, sir? So at 10 o'clock at night, as I walked down State Street, you can imagine my happiness to see young people out. They were playing music there on the corner. They were in our establishments. Lights were going, and we were alive with activity. And then I've had dinner with several other community leaders already, and we're talking about how do we reinvigorate our downtown district with mixed-use buildings where we attract our 20-somethings and 30-something-year-olds to live downtown, upstairs, maybe offices in the middle, shops down below. We, as a school system, can be a very important part of that conversation as you go forward and as you plan for our city's growth. We want to be your best partner, and we want to be your calling card. So you have an open invitation, you have my letter of introduction, you have my card, and you have my promise. I will always do what's best for kids. That is my compass point. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I'm afraid to say this, but you're going to see a lot of me.
Thank you.
Also, we want to welcome your wife, Jenny. Some of us enjoyed meeting her a little bit earlier and look forward to having her in our community as well. So look forward to it. So thank you very much. City Manager's report.
Yes, Mayor, there are a number of activities coming up the balance of this month and early in December. First, we'll have two community meetings to review with our downtown community the details of the downtown parking permit. And again, this is an opportunity to roll the program out, but also to get input. And we've had a couple of individuals speak to that issue tonight. So we want input. We want input from the entire community there. The first meeting will be held Thursday, November 14th at 2 p.m. in the Annex Conference Room, and certainly you're encouraged to be there. The second meeting will be held on Tuesday, November the 19th at 6 p.m. We structured those two meetings on 2 different weeks in the event someone is out for the week, but also trying to hit 2 different times to avoid conflicts there. That meeting will also be in the Annex Conference Room. And then we'll report back the results of, we'll report back the comments to council. And if we need to tweak the program, we can do that. Right. The annual Christmas, and I think Maggie and Ken have already left, but the annual Christmas open house for downtown, which is sponsored by Believe in Bristol, will be held on Monday, November 25th from 5:30 to 8:30. Also, our work session will be on November the 26th at 11 a.m. in the Annex. And then in early December, some of this before we meet, some of it after, we'll have the annual Bristol Christmas tree lighting on Monday, December the 2nd. It starts at 6:30 with refreshments and the bands playing and so forth in Cumberland Square. Also, we have the annual Tennessee Municipal League District 1 meeting, which will be held on Wednesday, December the 4th. It will commence at 10 a.m. and conclude at noon. There'll also be a lunch provided with that, and this year they're meeting in Irwin, and I think it's at an establishment called the Brambles. But I have sent this to you in an email invitation also. The annual Christmas parade, which I know is it's really a highlight of the year for this council, to participate in on Thursday, December the 5th. And the parade commences at 7 p.m., but we always gather earlier.
Excuse me, 7 p.m.?
p.m.
Okay,
Yes,
I thought you said a.m.
No, 7 p.m. But typically we meet 35 to 45 minutes ahead of that time and enjoy some social activities. I'd like to now ask Sheriff Young to come to the podium as we'll be doing over the next 2 to 3 months to continue to keep the upcoming census, the 2020 census, in front of the community. Sheriff is going to speak about the public education process, and then also show one of the videos that you can that's currently airing on BTN.
Sure. Thank you. So just a quick update on the census activities that have been going on in the past month. The Complete Count Committee, which is called the Bristol Counts Complete Count Committee, met for the 3rd time last week, and the group is now some 20 people strong. So Bristol, Virginia folks and Bristol, Tennessee folks working together to get the census message out into the community. One of the things that we've worked on, and I'd like to thank the Community Relations Department especially for this, is a logo that shows the cooperation and the effort, and it says we count people because people count, and that's the message of the Complete Count Committee. So that group will continue to meet. They have another meeting scheduled in December, and at least for the rest of this year, their real focus is trying to get that message out that the census still needs a lot of people to help make the census work. Just a quick figure, Sullivan County needs 1,274 applicants total. Their goal was to have 734 by this point. They currently have 377. So there's still a lot of people that they need to do the census work, and if anybody has any folks that they know that might be interested in the jobs, they can go to 2020census.gov/jobs. But we do have just a quick little video to help continue the message of why the census is important.
Beginning in March, the U.S. Census Bureau will invite households across the country to participate in the 2020 census. But what is the census? Simply put, the census is a head count of every person living in the United States. To be sure the government represents the people, the U.S. Constitution requires a population count every 10 years. Ever since 1790, the census has determined the number of seats each state receives in the U.S. House of Representatives. It is, and always has been, a cornerstone of our democracy. We still use it to determine representation, but leaders also use the data to make decisions. Your response helps guide planning for the future of our communities. The 2020 census will help inform decisions on how billions of dollars are allocated annually for critical public services like roads, schools, hospitals and healthcare clinics, fire and emergency response services, and hundreds of other programs. In 2020, for the first time, you'll be able to complete the census online, by phone, or by mail. It asks a few simple questions, like how many people live in your home on April 1st, including their age and sex, and if there are any children living there. You should know that by law, all census responses are completely confidential, and your personal information cannot be shared with any law enforcement agencies. Every person counts, no matter who you are or where you live. So whether your family has participated for decades or the 2020 census will be your first, we all have a role in shaping the future of our country.
Thank you very much. And if any council member wants to attend any of the census meetings, they're welcome to. And for our slogan, we appreciate Mark Overton from Central Christian Church who came up with that. So, and the logo from our department. All right, so time for council comments.
I'll jump in. Mr. Sora, what time is the Veterans Day Parade this Saturday?
John, what time's the Veterans Day Parade this Saturday?
Okay, so this Saturday, November 9th, is the Veterans Day Parade. We'll line up at 9 and start down at 10. It's a great day. Enjoy the parade. November 14th is Farm and Fun Time, 7 o'clock at the Birthplace of Country Music. This month is featuring Little Wiles, McKay, and Lee. On November 30th, we will have Small Business Saturday, as was mentioned earlier. On December 7th, we will have Santa at the center, at the downtown center, which is a great day. I understand that Pumpkin Palooza was just a huge hit, had over 500 pumpkins gone in the first couple of hours, if not sooner. People everywhere, merchants thoroughly enjoying all the activity downtown. So lots of good things going on downtown. Believe in Bristol just continues to work very hard, as does the BCM. The Birthplace of Country Music is not just open during Rhythm and Roots, it's open all year long and have wonderful exhibits as well as artists that come through. On the economic development front, I don't know how many of you have been on social media or looking to see that the sky is not falling in Upper East Tennessee. If you look at the Kiplinger magazine with the economic report of the 50 states, Tennessee, it's very exciting. They commented that the Nashville MSA is beginning to cool ever so slightly, as is Chattanooga. But by name, Bristol and Kingsport are now considered, the MSA is considered one of the emerging hot spots in the state, along with Memphis. Fabulous little mention there, Bristol by name. Something to be excited about. We also know that our jobs information is improving, as well as some other statistical data that I hope to share at our next meeting. I'd like to welcome Dr. Tom Sisk, especially. I had the good fortune of being there the night of the public interview, and wow, with all of the emphasis on workforce development, right place, right time, right mission. So we are delighted that you're here. That's all I have.
Next.
I think I said no.
Every few days, I take the opportunity to drive around town, even at nighttime, and go down and just observe what's going on in our community. And there's no question that things are going well in the city of Bristol, Tennessee. And one of the things that I look for when I'm driving around, I try to look at people. I try to look at their faces, try to look at their expressions, and most everyone I see, they're smiling, they're happy. So I think that's a good indicator of how well our community is doing.
Well, I just got to tell you, Dr. Sisk, I'm really excited about everything that you just now said, and looking forward to working with you in our school system. We do have a great school system, great teachers, and we just have a huge, really good addition. And I'm sure as we move forward, there's going to be some moving things within our animal ordinances. I appreciate our council members and all of the suggestions and thoughts, and as we move forward in it, I think we're all thinking the same thing. It's just how we get to that point is probably the main problem. But I'll just say also too that we do have, by the time we meet here next time, it will be Thanksgiving. So think about those folks that may be in shelters or maybe living at home alone. Maybe it's somebody that you could invite for Thanksgiving. Thanks.
Okay, I have several things and a couple of calendar things. So we are fortunate following Kingsport and Elizabethton that East Tennessee PBS and Black in Appalachia is coming on Saturday, November 9th, going to be at Slater Center from 9 to 5 for members of our community to bring stories, to bring letters, newspaper articles, etc. about our African American history here in our community that frequently in communities is not documented as well. Also, what happens is later on, after they've scanned things, et cetera, they come back to the community. They've done that visit back to Kingsport into Elizabethton to showcase what they've collected from the community. So pleased that we're hosting that. Also note that after the Veterans Day Parade, there's a ceremony. Both those things are likely to be pretty chilly. But the ceremony is held at the War Memorial Park in Bristol, Virginia, and the veterans organizations do a great job of recognizing folks and honoring our veterans and our past when they host that. And let's see, another something happening is for the Beauty of the Earth, a community recycling panel that King Environmental Club has been working on, and Wes Ritchie, who is our public services manager, is going to be one of those members on the panel. Also, Eastman will have somebody, as well as biology faculty from King, so hoping folks will turn out for that, support, learn about recycling, which is a concern for a lot of folks in our community, as we've seen big changes, both Bristol, Tennessee, and Virginia in that, and also support our King University students with what their interests are. And let's see, library director search continues. It's not unlike the school system search for the process, and Pat Hardy from MTAS helped several years ago, and he's helping again this time, which provides great opportunity for reaching out and also facilitating that process without having to hire search folks for it. So anyway, we've got some good applicants, going to be looking to see who might be chosen to come for interviews or to do Skype interviews. Also, the last month was Adverse Childhood Experiences Month, and we had a proclamation. Part of that initiative includes presentation. We call it a training, but it's really an introduction presentation that's about 15 to 17 minutes long. Bristol, Virginia City Council has had it, Bristol, Virginia School Board. And Mr. Powell, have y'all had the training or just the proclamation? So, so I just wanted to check in see if we can figure out when is the best time, and maybe it would be nice to do it with our school board if we'd have opportunity to have some interaction and have that on the agenda as part of the agenda. So if y'all are okay for folks to be talking about that and see what works best for doing that at whatever point. So you can give feedback to me or to Bill or whatever for what you prefer. And lastly, with talking about Thanksgiving and we think about November, the research about gratitude shows that if we take a few minutes and some folks start their day with being appreciative and thinking about things that are grateful, and they end up, the studies are showing that people have better health when they do that. Better mental health as well as better physical health. So I encourage myself to do that more and encourage everyone to take a few minutes, and even under the worst circumstances, take a few minutes and think about what you might be grateful for. And I do know that this is beginning of holiday times that can be rough for some folks. So taking that time to really concentrate and think about how we can be grateful could be helpful to us all. So with that, we're adjourned, and we'll see you next month. Thank you.